Let me know if this sounds familiar. Wake up, eat, stare at your computer for 8 hours as you try to work. Finish working, make dinner, watch TV, stare at your computer, go to bed. At least for me, quarantine has often felt like Groundhog Day. And even though there's less to do than maybe ever before, I've found myself just as busy, if not busier than ever. We all have things that we have to accomplish each day. From just getting out of bed in order to go to school or work, to finishing the script for this video. A certain amount of doing is really necessary for us to survive. But sometimes we get trapped in this cycle where doing leads to more doing, and then more doing. And one day we wake up, and all of a sudden we realize that years have passed, but it feels like nothing has really changed. And maybe more importantly, we feel like we haven't changed hardly at all from the person we were some time ago. We might have gotten a lot of things done in theory, but we didn't get many of the things done that ended up really mattering to us. And along the way, we kind of forgot to be. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you probably already know that just about everything that we think, feel, or do is based on stuff that happens inside of the brain. And we can change the brain through a process known as neuroplasticity. One of the best ways to do this is by internalizing positive experiences. If you want to become more productive, well, you have experiences of productivity, then you notice while you're having them. When you notice them, you feel good about it, and that slowly, over time, changes the brain. Now, the trick here is the internalizing part. We might keep on doing, but while we're doing all of that doing, we don't actually get around to feeling good about any of it. Good experiences, like the feeling of accomplishment, just wash right through us, kind of like water through a sieve. The brain doesn't really hold on to any of it. Many of the things that we do give us the opportunity to build internal resources that contribute to a great life. An easy example of this is feeling successful. As you're doing all of that doing, you have an opportunity to feel good about yourself. But how often does that actually happen? In our work lives, every time that you send an email, every time that you make a good point in a meeting, every time that you accomplish something, even something very minor, is an opportunity to experience, well, accomplishment. Equally in our personal lives, every time that we clean up our room, every time that we check in with a friend, or every time that we go out of our way to meet our own needs, well, that's an accomplishment too. Now, these accomplishments might sound pretty trivial. Most emails don't really matter that much in the grand scheme of things. But our whole life, in a sense, is really ordered around our ability to accomplish little things, one after the other after the other. Because each day is made up of many little goals, it means that there are many little opportunities for us to experience successful goal attainment. Much of the self-importance and superiority that you see people kind of act out in the world is based on underlying feelings of inadequacy, like they aren't good enough, like they haven't accomplished enough in their own lives. So feeling like a success can actually be a kind of service out in the world, right? It can help people sort of lighten up and take themselves less seriously, and when we do that, we're generally a lot more fun to be around. And hey, along the way, it just kind of feels good too. The brain changes slowly, little by little by little. And what this means is that many small experiences of feeling successful can actually have a bigger impact on a person than seeing one large trophy resting on their mantle. With so many of these tiny accomplishments under our belts every single day, it's kind of haunting that we don't feel successful more often. Part of this is due to neurobiological factors like the negativity bias, which highlights our negative experiences and tends to gloss right over our positive ones. When we don't meet our goals over and over again, internal alarms go off inside of the brain, dopamine activity drops, we start to feel anxious, and it's just a big soup of crappy feelings. Then, on top of the brain science stuff, a lot of these factors are socially constructed. Our Western society's heavy emphasis on doing leads to a kind of movement from action to action to action without a lot of time for appreciation for all of those actions that we've already accomplished. People often start to go kind of numb as they rush from one activity to another. They finish one race, they zoom right through the finish line, and they move on to the next one. This is only exacerbated by the simple reality that many powerful people, most powerful people really, are benefited by keeping you on the hamster wheel, with real success always truly just a little bit out of reach. If you get promoted, well, stay hungry. If you win a championship, well, what about next year? You work harder, you stay later, you give 110%, you commit to the company, and at the end of the day, if you're really lucky, you get that gold watch after 50 years, but it's never quite enough. The goalposts just keep on getting pushed back. And the sad irony of all of it is that this is doubly so if you're actually good at doing. Good doers tend to get rewarded with more complicated doing. And that doing, one task after another, day after day after day, tends to crowd out actually just being, truly living your life. It can be helpful to take a step back sometimes and try to recognize what causes all of this. And what you'll probably find is that it's a feeling of lack, the hunger for more, a kind of greed that exists in all of our minds, a greed that was probably really useful for our ancient primate ancestors who had to constantly keep on looking for resources in order to survive very harsh environments. But today, when we all have so much, that greed just brings us more suffering. And that greed is an enormous driver of so much of modern life. How do you fight that greed? By feeling like you have enough already, like you're already satisfied right now. And one way to experience that is by internalizing all of those feelings of accomplishment that we have the opportunity to experience each and every day. When people feel successful already, it's tempting to think that they might become kind of lazy, or like they won't want to engage with the world anymore. But for most people, feeling successful already helps them aim high. It helps them take risks and recover from setbacks and truly perform at their best when they're no longer constantly in a state of fear and anxiety. If you're motivated by the fate of the world at all, it tends to lower our consumption and helps us experience fulfillment based on what we already have. And it can also help us feel more comfortable and confident in just being. Taking the time we want to take, moving through the day at our own pace, and reminding ourselves that we really are all right now. Reminding ourselves that most of the time, it really is okay to slow down for a second and remind yourself to enjoy the experience you're already having. So that's it for today. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel here on YouTube, and hey, maybe even press the like button. And if you enjoy this kind of content, I have a podcast called Being Well. Each week I explore the practical science of well-being with a bunch of great guests. There'll be a link to it down below in the description of today's video. So until next time, thanks for watching.